Want to share with you some lessons. I told you that my friend Joseph says that prevention is a love letter to the future, and I think that that is so beautiful and really important when we are working on violence prevention in really challenging times. So I want to share with you some lessons from the garden. We're seeing a lot of the things that make communities stronger, safer, and healthier be taken away. But I want to share a personal story that has been teaching me a lot about prevention. So last season, I built, did I build it? I grew a pumpkin arch in my garden. Okay. I saw it online and I thought, I need that. I was so excited. I planned it out. I planted the seeds. I picked out the seeds. I tended to it. I trained the vines to grow up the arch. And for a while, it was thriving. It was beautiful. It felt like proof that all of my care and attention was really paying off. I just, oh my gosh, it was going to be great. But just as things were really looking good, the squash beetles showed up. And my precious pumpkin arch was completely under attack. They were also not just attacking my pumpkin arch, but they were bleeding over into some other parts of my garden, like my zucchinis. And I had a moment where I thought, okay, this isn't going to work. Like, this season is done. I'm going to give up. But then I remembered that, oftentimes when a crop is under attack, a farmer who's like put tons of resources of time and money into it doesn't usually just give up and walk away, right? They usually try to see if they can turn the tides, and they also keep planting new seeds and tending to what is surviving. So I thought, okay, maybe I should do that. But I didn't have one magic solution, right? I reached for different tools because there isn't one perfect tool that was going to save everything. But it was about a range of tools and knowing how to use them. And I really think in this moment, prevention is the same. There isn't one strategy that fixes everything. We have multiple tools and we can use multiple tools depending on what our communities are experiencing and what's needed in that moment. So some tools might be relational, some tools might be policy focused or resource based, but all of them matter and all of them have a time and place. The other thing that I did was I brought in beneficial insects, the helpers that restore balance. And the good news was that I needed a lot fewer of them than I had of the ones attacking my garden for the balance to shift. And I really believe that every time we show up in this work with love and integrity and creativity, we are refusing to accept the world as it is, and we're choosing to build the world we want or grow the garden we want. I want to give some real world examples of prevention in practice. And the first thing I want to share with you all, if you're not familiar with CDC's Prevention Resources for Action, there are 6 of them, all focused on different types of violence, many of them sharing a lot of the same or similar strategies, meaning that if we're trying to impact one form of violence, we likely are impacting other forms of violence, which is really exciting. They're full of the best available research and evidence of what actually works to prevent these different types of violence. So some examples that I've had the honor of learning about, thinking about how do we address economic supports. Now, that sounds like something that maybe we don't have a lot of control over, but here are 2 examples of local communities taking things into their own hands and trying to change the economic environment that their citizens were living in. So in Iowa, The health department is using microfinancing and is partnering with organizations to provide microfinancing options as a way to reduce poverty, to empower people, to bring the community together. And that the goal is to see long-term benefits in the reduction of violence. Another example is an organization called the Bridge Project, which gives families, oh gosh, I think in the first 18 months of a baby's life, they give unconditional cash to the mother as a way to support the first year of a baby's life. It actually starts before the baby's born too, and helps to avoid adverse childhood experiences on that baby, but also to break an intergenerational cycle of poverty. So those are just two examples that are not the big P policy, but they're things that are happening in local communities that are really trying to make economic stability an actual reality for people. Another example around creating like physical environments that are protective and social environments that are protective comes to us from Michigan, the Michigan Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. They have been doing a lot of work creating greenery and green spaces in their communities. So, community gardens, parks, and like I shared earlier, the goal is not just to have a place for people to go that looks nice, but it's so people have a place to go where they feel like they belong and where they can connect with their other community members. So it's not just changing the physical environment, but it's also changing the social environment. Because if people feel like they belong somewhere, I think, I don't know, for me, if I feel like I belong somewhere, that just automatically improves the quality of my life. And so this is work going on across Michigan in different communities. And then another example I want to share is around community partnership and collaboration. So this is a project in California called Safety and Healing in Networks of Equity, or SHINE, and it is led by Prevention Institute, but co-created with 5 collaboratives. And the collaboratives build community leadership and power for safety through work to increase housing stability, economic justice, and then youth and family support. So they're really looking at transforming community environments so that communities that have been harmed by inequities and specifically domestic violence have equitable access to conditions for safety and healing. And so these are all of the organizations that are a part of that. And there's a website where you can look at their latest report and learn about that. I did see a comment that education is still needed in these communities, and I think that's a really important point. If we went back to the slide that had the different forms of prevention, it is very true that some communities might not be ready for primary prevention, that you have to start somewhere else. Or you could be doing them in tandem, right? Like that, again, is the goal, to be working on all of those different forms of violence prevention together. So maybe a community really does need to understand that this is an issue, but that doesn't mean that you can't then be co-creating protective environments where people have the ability to take that information and actually apply it. I just wanted to share a couple more helpful resources if you want to continue some of this like foundational learning. So I have to shout out to our friends over at the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. They have some really great resources, one around plain language. So even some of the language I've used today, I would not consider plain language. We tried really hard, but I have absorbed a lot of public health language over the years, and that doesn't necessarily serve us when we're trying to connect with our neighbors, for example, or community partnerships. So learning how to talk about these issues with plain language. The National Sexual Violence Resource Center also has their primary prevention primer that I really love. And then there's a wonderful new resource called the Learning Community that is full of all sorts of topics that you can access